So it looks like Plague Tale Requiem on Xbox Series S, X and PlayStation 5 has got a performance mode. Let's look into this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about Plague Tale Requiem again, because it looks like this game, despite the fact that it runs at 30 frames per second on all consoles, and this is a current gen title, so apparently there's no version for Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X. That game is available only on Xbox Series S, X and PlayStation 5. And imagine my surprise when I found out that this game is actually running only at 30 frames per second on all these consoles in a normal mode. At the time I didn't know that there's so-called a performance mode, but it's not a typical performance mode, because if you watched my video yesterday, I did say that there's no toggle, that there's no option to switch between graphics and performance mode as you would normally have in a game that offers performance modes. But there is a way to run this game on all these consoles at a bit higher frame rate. That's not 60, so don't get too excited. I mean, that game runs at 60 frames per second only on PC. By the way, you need a decent PC to actually run it at decent resolutions and frame rate. But when it comes to consoles, you can actually run this game at 40 frames per second. But in order for this trick to work, you need to have a TV or monitor that supports 120 frames per second. So you need a 120 Hz monitor or TV with VRR support, right? Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So what it does, it reproduces 40 frames per second, making this game a little bit smoother than 30. And the fact that you are running this on a 120 Hertz monitor that refreshes the screen 120 times per second, you get a smooth experience. So there's no stutter, because if you were to run this game at 40 frames per second on a 60 Hertz monitor, well, that wouldn't really work great. So this trick was used first on PlayStation 5, I think, with some titles a couple of months ago. And it looks like this trick is actually being used by other developers now on Xbox as well. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a cool thing to have, right? So it always makes the game a little bit smoother, right? It's not a massive difference, but it is a little bit smoother. Now, but there's a problem there, right? Because, like, let's face it, most people that play on consoles don't have TVs or monitors that support 120 frames per second, and VRR at the same time, right? I mean, actually, it's funny because I really wanted to test it, but I forgot that my 120 Hertz monitor don't support VRR. So yeah, I need to invest in a new monitor, basically, right? Because my other monitor support VRR, but it's only 60 frames per second, so 4K 60 frames per second. So that's kind of shame, right? I mean, yeah, I use that 120 Hertz monitor on PC, so I don't really need it. I mean, that much. But anyway, you know, the option is there. So if you've got a TV like that, you will actually be able to take advantage of it, and that experience for you guys is going to be a slightly better, right? But like I said, like most people play games on a 4K 60 or a 1080p 60 monitors or TVs, let's face it, and yeah, most people won't be able to take advantage of it, which is a shame. That's why I was so disappointed with the fact that there's no 60 frames per second, right? And listen, you know, this game runs at 1440p 30 frames per second, right? and in this performance mode it's 1440p 40 frames per second. So there's enough juice, in my opinion, to run this game at 1080p 60 frames per second, because this game is GPU limited. I tested it on PC and it's well, my CPU is hardly actually used, so like GPU scales pretty well usually, right? So that's why I don't understand why developers didn't go with like 1080p or dynamic 14 to 40p 60 frames per second, right? So I know that Asobo is not like the biggest studio and stuff. Maybe they didn't have budget for it. Maybe they didn't have time for it. I think the game, has been delayed many times as well. Playing it, I've found some bugs here and there as well. So it's not a perfect game, technically speaking. But it's a shame that we don't have that 60 frames per second option. But I guess, for some of you that do have 120 Hertz monitors or TVs with VRR support, you will be able to take advantage of that 40 frames per second performance mode, right? I know that it kind of sounds funny, but it is what it is. So yeah, guys, it's a bit shame and it's a bit disappointing that we are getting like more and more games like that, right? Because it's a second game recently, and this is second next generation game, or should I really say current generation game, right? Because both Gotham Knights and now Plague's Tale, these two games are PlayStation 5, Xbox Series console games, right? So there's no last generation versions. So this is not a cross-gen development, and I've seen a lot of comments saying that, oh, the game looks beautiful, and don't get me wrong, it looks great. Like the game looks really good, but would I say it looks next gen good? Probably not. But like I said, like Asobo is not a big developer, maybe they just haven't had enough time, budget, expertise to optimize it better, who knows. But like, but let's face it, like 1080p 60 frames per second option wouldn't be actually a bad thing. I was very critical of like Saints Row, for example, for all these like 8 or 9 options. But you know what? Actually, these options were actually not that bad, because like at least you as a gamer had a choice, right? There was 1080p. So instead of having all these toggles like on PC, they did give you sort of a PC options, but in more console version, I guess. And you had like 6 or 7 or 8 different options, like 1080p performance, 1080p quality, 1440p performance, 1440p quality, and some 2 or 3 others, other options. You could I think you can disable ray tracing in some of these modes. So it gives you a little bit of a ability. You can actually play with these settings and choose your own kind of way you want to experience this game, but looks like that's not the case with this and probably many other games in the future as well. So by the way, last word on that, we really need these mid-gen console upgrades. Trust me, we really do, and we need them fast. So anyway, guys, that's the video. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks for support. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Share the video with others on social media. That is always greatly appreciated. And I will see you all in the next one. Take care.